Welcome to the Provoke and Inspire podcast. I'm feeling giddy. Oh yes, David and I, we are in such proximity that we can actually high five and shall probably.
I can too.
No, you.
I can do that too.
What are you wearing, man?
Oh yeah. This is my gothic, like Hawaiian T-shirt.
Okay, can I remind you that the majority of our listeners are listeners and therefore have no context to your random.
Well, let me paint a picture for our listeners.
No, let us not paint a picture.
Luke is wearing like
Hawaiian.
This, like give Anya her blouse back.
Well, yeah, it is a very girly blouse, as the Australians would say.
It's anything that's slightly different, David. You class as like feminine. Like when I had the stripes thing, that was feminine.
Like when you were wearing
and
those high
maybe
heels.
it's linked, right? When I wore lipstick,
cummerbund
that's feminine.
When you're wearing the chapeau from the French
I want to know.
regions.
I want to know, Luke, why you're so defensive? Because I don't judge you, man.
Yeah, take it down a notch.
Yeah,
really.
I'm just trying to educate our audience about,
Welcome to the Provoke and
how
Inspire
things are.
podcast, calling followers of Jesus to radical faith outside of the church. David's pointing at this screen. Like, what do you want me to do with this screen? Again, would you stop referencing things that the majority of people have no reference to?
Keep going.
Yeah. Calling followers of Jesus to
Rock
radical
and
faith
roll.
outside of the church. Obviously, one of the ways that you can really help our podcast is by rating it or reviewing it. Now, David, early this morning in his jet-lagged fog, sent me a review. I guess it's from Chartable. I don't even know how he found this, how desperate he must be for affirmation. But we really we really need your ratings and your reviewings. It helps us. This is a long one again, for the love. Andres Ladano from Bogota writes, as his review on Chartable, David crumbles up to the moon of religion into stars full of true Christianity. His words are like a sudden warm rainstorm that washes down in sweet hyphens. The morals of every one of his carefully crafted random stories will one day be canonized in a wisdom book. Chad's self-induced tense laughter reminds me to always be grateful about life and to always smile. Also, I appreciate a lot the fact that he thinks on every word ahead, because that gives me much time to multitask or make a sandwich while he speaks. His inspired risk stories have inspired me to take some risks of my own. Thank you. Ben uses very complex lexicon, making him sound cool even though his jokes are very bad. He easily gets frustrated with his co-host. For this reason, Luke, which acts like a sensitive old mother-like voice, calms him down with his reconciliatory power. Overall, the podcast is excellent. Actually, it's my favorite podcast. Signed off, Andre Lodondo from Bogota, Colombia.
Wow,
that person does not exist.
No, they do. Go on Chartable and you'll see it.
He may or may not exist, but can I just be the first to congratulate myself in that reading? I thought it was emotive. Yes. It had limited stumbles. It was smooth. I'm feeling giddy and full of piz and canazzo, if you will.
So what you're saying is you know how to read. That's great.
I would like you to try what I just did, Luke. Not all those words were one syllable and end in the word cheap.
I read to my son every evening.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
I practice.
Both of us. All right. Well, we have a great podcast for you today. We have David's random story. We have an amazing guest, Sean Feucht. Sean is a worship leader at Bethel Church in Reading. You probably have heard of it, as well as the founder of grassroots global worship, prayer, and missions organization Burn 24/7. Ow! Woohoo! As of this day, produced, recorded, and released 15 albums, authored numerous books, including Moby Dick, The Land Before Time. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
And the anyway, the dude is legit. He has been an influencer in the worship world and beyond, and now he is running for Congress. Bum, bum, bum.
Wow.
He's running for Congress, which it's not every day you get a worship guy running for Congress.
He's running for.
In which country? In which country is he running for Congress?
The United States.
The free lands of the Congo Northeast.
Hey, audience, don't you guys love how Americans always just talk about their country like everybody should just know what they're talking about?
How about
That's
you
amazing.
Dominate, and then you can be the center of
as a representative of the non-American audience.
USA. All right.
I just want to say.
He is a great guest. We had an amazing conversation, and through the magic of editing, we will seamlessly interwoven it, and it will feel like one smooth discourse.
But we're going to edit out all of Luke's comments because they were incoherent mostly.
Yeah, it was just waffling at the 10th degree. But no, we had a great conversation with him, and we will bring him on at some point to talk about politics. Does it make a difference? Can it make a difference? How do we deal with our binary political system? Can we really possibly hope to achieve something in this political climate?
Do ostriches really put their head in the sand?
Do small children really make forts out of their own nourishments?
If you climb a ladder...
Did man really land on the moon?
What?
Oh, he just killed it.
Did man really land on the moon?
All right, moving on.
Man.
David's random story.
So anyway, I was in Germany and I just flew back to the States and this is where I am now, and I'm quite jet lagged. And I wanted to go out for a meal with my wife, Jody. But when you're in jet lag, sometimes when I'm on jet lag, I'm a little less.
I believe it's in jet lag.
I'm a little less patient, and so
he's never that.
So we're at the restaurant, and the waiter gives my wife and I the menus and says, "Here you go, ladies." And
oh, no.
I was really like,
back to the well he goes.
Here you go.
I missed that. And
I had on my lumberjack shirt too.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
mean, can you imagine if you were wearing this shirt?
Oh man. So he's like, "Here you go, ladies," and I'm like, I was really mad. It's like I was like, and I was like, "I am not a woman," but I thought
that helps.
First of all, that's just weird, so I didn't know what to do, and I know, and then I felt convicted because, I'm supposed to be a Christian, and Christians aren't supposed to yell in restaurants, "I am not a woman."
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Of course, they are a woman.
If you're of a secular perspective, then go ahead and yell out that
yes.
I'm a woman.
I am not a woman. So I didn't want to do that because, first of all, that would have made it more awkward. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'm going to order something manly. You know what I mean? So it's like I wouldn't. So I couldn't order I couldn't order quiche, for example. It's like, I would like some quiche. That would have just reinforced the whole thing.
Bring me some rye bread over quinoa and sprinkle on a little paprika, will you, sir?
Yeah. So or could I have a biscuit?
Hand me a Belgian crumpet. Smother it in delicious northern cheese.
So I thought, I can't order anything British, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, basically, we've never.
Then he'd have thought for sure I was a woman.
Ladle me some porridge.
Fish and chips. Give us some fish and chips and a pint of ale, please.
I thought, I can't do it. I have to.
A steak sandwich.
So I thought, I'm going to order something manly so he'll know that I am not a woman. That way, I don't have to shout in the restaurant, "I am not a woman."
The order will speak for itself.
So he goes, "So what would you like?" And I said, I would like a breakfast burrito.
This is not funny. Luke's only laughing because he lives in Britain.
And he's going, what? I would like a breakfast burrito with guacamole.
Burrito. It's not a burrito.
Oh, come on. And the guys go, "Why are you talking like that?"
It's not funny. Stop. There's nothing funny about this. That's a very normal, gender-neutral order.
No, apparently
no woman has ever shied away from ordering a breakfast burrito for fear of being accused of being manly.
So he could tell at that point that either I was a man or just kind of a masculine woman.
I'll take a sirloin smoothie, please.
So, but at least I left him wondering. And so the moral to the random story is, if you don't want people to think you're a woman when you're a man, order something manly.
Or specifically a breakfast
wow.
burrito. You can't. Kippy's looking on disapprovingly. And I'm feeling saddened.
He's waiting for he reach puberty, I think.
I'm feeling saddened because I wonder, will life ever be good again?
Why?
I don't know. That was heavy.
That was heavy, man.
That was heavy.
I find it hard to identify with the stories. It's an incredible amount of times.
I think identification is trouble for you in general. But we're going to move on from that rather.
You're being mean to Luke. I don't know why. For the first time in this podcast, in the history of this podcast, I'm feeling empathy for Luke
I
right
think that
now.
might just be that there's a draft in here.
It's the
There's a window
T-shirt. It's
open.
the shirt.
Yeah.
the
I
shirt.
want to let y'all know about something coming up. It's the launch of a new initiative called Is There More? And Is There More is our new digital evangelism that we'll be releasing as of Thursday. And well, that makes it sound past tense. You know what? Instead of me talking,
Don't say the day of the
I'm
week.
going to make Kippy find this video, take the audio from the video, and play it right
Then.
now.
Yes.
No, not then. Then's past now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Brilliant.
isn't that
That was
compelling?
amazing. I loved that. That was
Whoa.
beautiful.
Whoa.
Amazing. I'm blown
Anyway,
away. Ben, and a question. Is there more?
Just no. First of all, no. Second of all, just ask the question. I don't need the sort of the ramp up. Just ask your darn question. I'll ignore it either way. I love you. Peace. All right, that's the end of the podcast. No. We are going to now bring on Sean Feucht. But before we
Sean Feucht.
No, not Jean Feucht. Not his Belgian ninja fighting cousin. Jean.
I was wondering how you pronounce that surname.
No, we're going to bring on Sean. Before we do, rate this podcast. Review this podcast, man.
Now.
Do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
All right.
Now.
Further ado, here's Sean. Perfect. Man, we were just all like, we were just all nuts because we've been sitting here talking too much.
Especially with
Too long.
Sean. All right.
All right.
Are we done? What about for the?
All right. So, Sean, thank you so much for joining the Provoke and Inspire podcast.
Yeah, welcome.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we are very excited about this conversation. It's not every day that you get to talk to someone who is both worship guy and politics guy all at the same time. Sorry, David's looking at me because I stole his thunder. David, go ahead. How about you kick us off?
So first of all, Sean, it's an honor to have you on our podcast. And I apologize for what Luke's wearing. I don't know why he didn't wearing such a, it's like, but I apologize.
Hey, I put on my special T-shirt today for Sean.
But the question I have is, so how do you go from being a worship guy to a politician? Oh, and another thing is, thanks for not cutting your hair. I appreciate that.
Mm.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, definitely not going to cut my hair.
Long hair is overrated anyway. Just wanted to say that as well to start.
No.
Hey, you remember what happened to a guy named Samson when he listened to Delilah?
Exactly.
Right.
He Luke, you cut your hair and you're wearing your wife's shirt or blouse or whatever.
That's Old Testament. That's Old Testament.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this life change or shift isn't something that I had really planned. It was honestly like a big surprise, and still is a surprise. When I wake up every morning and think about what we're doing, it can be really daunting because it's really new terrain, and it's really hard to find a blueprint, I think, for somebody my age, with kind of my background jumping into the deep end of this insanity. But yet I feel really provoked. I think for me, there's a lot of things that motivate me. I think one of the big motivators is just looking at the way that things are going in America and the polarization and the insanity of our nation, and looking at my kids. I have 4 of them, 9, 7, 5, and 1, wow. And seeing the direction of the country and what it's going to look like when they grow up. And I mean, that's concerning to me. So I've hosted so many prayer meetings, so many initiatives to pray for America and believe for revival and all this stuff. And I think for me, this kind of represents taking my prayers a step further and kind of in putting some action behind them. And it's, I think you look at the biblical pattern even of worship. And I mean, David was one that I'm looking to right now that was, a priest and a king and a prophet. And he moved in all these different realms and ended up being a politician. So,
and is this your first engagement in politics? You're going straight in for as you said, the deep end.
Straight in for the federal big leagues.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. I've been moved. There's been issues where I've been moved, and I've been in connection with, you know, politicians, and I definitely had a heart in some measure for it. Never thought I was going to run though. That was never really on my grid. I think, you know, usually people kind of they strategically plan, you know, their education and their background, and they kind of they have set their mind on doing that. And for me, it's not been like that. But I can see how God can use my history of what we've done all over the world, and how we've helped people, and I think that that's going to really be helpful in this next season.
So in preparation for this, I mean, obviously when I heard, I thought it was really fascinating. And one thing that you said about sort of this being the culmination, or maybe the next step of putting prayer into action, I so respect that. I think that's amazing that, like you said, this is a pretty big left turn, and to respond to that, I think is amazing. But as the whole political thing, I think is probably the way you felt about it, or at least the way I've heard you describe it, is that it has kind of this bad reputation, that it can become kind of a dirty word for people almost. And so to enter into that in a time, as you said, where we live in such incredible polarization, this tribalism, and kind of the left and the right and extremes, and putting people in camps. And I was just watching the video on your website, and I have to be honest with you, I was struck a little bit by the feeling of the beginning of it. Felt a little bit along the lines of the very thing I'm a little bit skeptical about with politics, which is that it felt a little bit like dramatic, and the left, and we got the liberal ethics and all this, and I get the heart of it. But how are you hoping to be different? How can we restore conversation and civility, and not just demonizing the opposition, even if we feel, as I do, strongly about a lot of the ills of, you know, the certain political agendas out there?
It's a great question, really is. You know, I think the heart, I think if you look right now at America, you'll see a 13% approval rating on Congress on both sides of the aisle.
Oh man.
So, you know, nobody's really happy. And I think really the depiction in that was really to show like how insane it's gotten, you know. And, you know, I'm actually a really optimistic person. It's interesting. Like, you know, I'm, and my wife and anybody that knows me will tell you, like, I'm so optimistic. I mean, you can't, you know, build what we've built in the countries that we've built them in without carrying a certain sense of hope and optimism. I mean, we were in Iraq all through ISIS, you know, when everyone else was, you know, fleeing, most organizations were leaving, and we stuck in it, you know, and now we're reaping the rewards of being faithful in that really dark season. So, but I think it is important to understand, like, hey, you can't come in with fluffy cloud prayers and rose-colored glasses. Like, things are messed up.
Yeah.
You know, 60 million babies have been aborted since 1973. I mean, the worst slaughtering of innocent blood in the history of our nation. And people are fighting and bickering, and there's all these crazy agendas happening. So I think it does start. I will totally agree with you. It's a little dark. It's a little, even I would like, you know, like, I'm usually the hope guy, you know, I'm usually like there's hope, you know, but I think it's important to understand where people are at, you know, and that is the situation where people are at. And the last thing I want to do is demonize a particular, you know, group of people. You know, again, as believers, we do believe that the battle is not against flesh and blood. It's against powers, you know, that want to disunify. But I'm hoping that I can connect to the people that are frustrated, and I'm prayerful and hopeful that the way in which we're structuring this campaign, that people can see that you know, there are redeemable things on both ends of the spectrum. But you know, there are some issues that to me are hills worth dying on.
Right.
And I will not shy back from that. There's things that I've discussed in ministry and life over the last, you know, 10 years. There are things that I preach about. There are things that I hold dear. And there are things that people will call me out for being a bigot for, which that's just part of the thing. You know, you have to, you know, I love the quote from Billy Graham that he says, you know, it's like when a courageous man takes a stand, the spines of everyone else are stiffened. And I want the church to get her spine back in America. I want people to stand up for what's right. I think that we can do that in a way that's civil. I agree with you. We need to bring back civility to the discussion, and so I'm hopeful to do that. And I think the shock value of the first part of that video, I think reveals the heaviness of where we're at. But I'm really hopeful that we can bring real-time solutions to the problems that are happening.
I agree, and it is complicated, and even something I've been wrestling with myself is because we're part of a missions organization that uses creative means to evangelize to people outside of the church. That's our heart. So we're very much in the camp of, we want to see big change. The world needs big change. And then I listened to a guy like a Ben Shapiro, for example, who's really been something, and some people might not like me for listening to him, but whatever. And he has all of these hardcore stances, but then he has such a completely libertarian view of the government. Like, well, I don't care. The government can't tell me what to do. And it's not really up for the government to even decide. And I find myself torn in this balance of, because for me, he undercuts the agency of change. How are we supposed to make change if we just have strong points of view, but then have no mechanism for actually seeing anything happen? Can you talk about how do you wrestle with that of the limits of politics? How much can we really change? How much can the government even legislate things like, moral issues? Where is the tension in that for you? Have you wrestled with that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's just definitely, could be a really long drawn out discussion. But I think at the end of the day, I think the church has to be the church, I think is a huge thing. Right. And I think that we have, we've built society and the government to become the answer for everything, for all of our needs. And America was never meant to be that way, America was never meant to be set up in that way. And so I think, when we start elevating the government to become our God and fix all of our issues, and a big part of why I'm running, to just be honest with you guys, is that, I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the answers. I don't, I feel like I'm guided with a strong moral compass, but I don't want to be one of those millennials that just whines on Twitter. Like, I want to be a part of the solution. And it doesn't mean that I know everything. It doesn't mean that I even have all the answers for this kind of interview, but I do feel like that the big first step is for us to stop whining and complaining and to start engaging. And so I think that's my heart. I've always seen in the trajectory of where the Lord sent us around the world that, if we just sit back and throw stones, we don't really accomplish a lot. We just contribute to the noise of this culture that's this victim, crazy, intense mindset. And I want to give this a shot. And maybe it'll be so foolish. Maybe it'll end up being like, what is he thinking? But maybe it'll inspire people. I already have friends that across the world, whether it's in South Africa or Canada or across Europe, they're already starting to engage in the political realm just because they saw that I announced. And to me, that's already a huge win. Right. And I hope that in America that happens more, because millennials, it's so intense. They're just like tuning out, right? By and large, they're just tuning out. And I, to be honest with you, up until doing this, especially living in California, I'll say that I had the tendency to do that as well.
Yeah. I really respect. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
No, go ahead, Luke.
I was going to say, I really respect that. I've always, and I've thought of political action, but social action in general, how what you're saying is right. Often as Christians, we'll stand for principles and we'll talk about things or pray for things, and we don't come to taking the action. And I do respect what you're saying for that. And I think, and I do think that it's a bold step you've taken. And I do think Christians should be engaging in politics and at that level. I think that's really good. One of the things that I've always found challenging, and this is reality in all countries. I'm not American, so speaking into American politics, but it's a reality in all countries. But in the US, it's particularly strong. The Christian perspective, the Christianity and politics come often, they mix in a different way in the US. And maybe it's related to Ben's question a bit in just what's the role of politics. But do you see a difference there in like the action we have as Christians, there's a lot we should be doing, and you were doing a lot before as well with different NGOs, as you've said, going into Iraq and things like that. So there's things like that we can do as Christians, and there's things we can do to influence politics, and we can even go into politics to bring that. But at least from my perspective, it's important to keep separate what is kingdom and what is politics and government. Maybe that's what you were saying in terms of like, we can't make the government our God, and voting for the right party doesn't mean we voted for Christianity. It's, there needs to be, at least in my view, a clear separation there. Do you agree with that? Does there need to be a separation where there's kingdom, there's God's agenda, there's what God is all about, and there's the world of man-made systems and politics, and we can speak into that, and we should, but we can't like make it one and the same thing. Do you agree with that, or how do you see that?
Well, there's layers to that question. I think one thing, you have to realize that America is unique because it's inherently, anybody agrees with this, but it's inherently a Judeo-biblical, foundation in many ways. So it's a lot more intertwined. But put that on that side, I think what I'm really passionate about is seeing, the kingdom of God come to, the mountains of influence in society. And I think that, as the church, we have we celebrate really big once we see somebody like Justin Bieber or Kanye, that's like hosting worship services, and we celebrate it, we applaud it, or a football star, says a prayer after they throw a touchdown. They want to thank Jesus, and they specify, I think in the political realm, and I'm just speaking from my experience of the last 2.5 weeks, in the political world, we have a hard time cheering people that want to see the kingdom of God come into the political mountain. I think it's very polarizing. It's very divisive. And Christians just being honest with you guys, like Christians don't know how to get behind people that feel called to this realm of society. They know how to get behind people in fashion and business and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to the political realm, it gets really weird, really fast. And, the church and Christians, I feel like the gospel was meant to penetrate all realms of society. I think the Great Commission is not just to every nation, tribe, and tongue, but it's every cultural mountain of influence. I feel like we're going to. We're the salt, we're the light. If you look at Daniel, he was called, to bring that to the king. If you look at, there's several, examples throughout history. But I think right now in America, it's very difficult for people. And the biggest people attacking me right now in the last 2.5 weeks are Christians. It's not the world. It's actually Christians, and they are hate-filled with vile intentions. I am shocked beyond my belief. Regardless of where they land in the political aisle, I just would think you see a guy that's a believer that's given his life to ministry in the nations. I would think, man, like, go for it. Yeah, he may not be perfect. He may not share all our beliefs, but Christians just tear each other down. They eat their own, and it is insane to me. So, that has been a very sobering thing to realize.
For sure.
So Sean, what kind of things have they said, or how have you been attacked?
Oh, just go on Twitter if you want to find out. There's been a lot of things that have been said. And I think probably one of the funniest things is that it's been said that I'm like doing this for money or doing this for fame, which both of those things are horrible. Like from a career musician or missionary or whatever, this is like a horrible choice. That's polarizing your audience. Being on a record label that's successful and having records that have done well and writing songs and traveling and doing missions, all those things are kind of unifying across the political aisle. But saying that you're running for office is very divisive. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I laugh about. I'm like, great life choice. Yeah, I'm really doing this for my own gain here.
And sincerely, from the outside looking in, that's exactly what I think, because a lot of people would look at your life and think he's arrived in a sense. And why would you jump ship? Why would you go in a different direction? So I certainly don't think that at all. I think it's very courageous. And I have political heroes, biblical, obviously, but even like a William Wilberforce, like there are people that God has used incredibly powerfully in the political sphere. But do you think that some of the skepticism or some of the hesitancy, ignore the real extremes of the hate, because you're going to get that from whatever, it's just whatever. But do you feel like our binary political system plays into that to some degree, where it's like there's a hopelessness only because you feel like you're stuck? It's like you've got these two parties. The honest ones amongst us would recognize that they're both flawed, and people kind of feel like to jump into the political sphere is to have to marry oneself with something that is so flawed, and you feel like you just feel like, and again, I'm not a small thinking, a realistic person, but the binary element of our politics play into this at all?
Of course. I mean, of course. It's like, and I think what's difficult is that it's identity politics. It's just this whole world where it's like, if you want to run for office, you have two options. I mean, you can try to be the hero and not link up with either of them, and that doesn't hardly ever work. And I think if you look at, I think I keep coming back to Daniel or Esther or whoever. I think there's great examples of people in the Bible. I mean, Daniel served a wicked king. I mean, a wicked, horrible, demonic king. And yet he did it with the call of the Lord in his life. It's funny, every time he comes and he brings these dreams, he says, "Oh, I pray that it wasn't about you." Like, where it's like the average Christian would think, yeah, it should be about you. You're horrible,
Right.
But he served in a position of honor. And, I think for me, what's difficult is, I have to, by linking up to a certain party, I have to essentially feel like, people make me feel like I have to defend all the things about that party, which I just kind of think is a little immature. And it's kind of like, but it's the narrative people love, and all of a sudden you become this pawn of the evangelical empire. That's, it's like this whole narrative that's being spread across our generation. And I will say, there's things about a certain side of the aisle that are, as I mentioned before, hills that I die on, that I think are really important to me. Does it mean that it's, everything else is perfect? No. Do I agree with everything? No, of course not. And hopefully people will see that as they follow our journey. That's my prayer, is that every day I wake up, that I'm not saying we're going to do things perfectly. Actually, my first, op-ed that I wrote went against the president and his decision in northern Syria. I'm very passionate about the Kurdish people, and I want to speak my mind and be very for the things that I'm for, and I want to stay consistent in those things. And so I'm hoping in this process that as people engage with us, maybe they can put aside the preconceived notions, and maybe they can put aside the two-party system that is difficult, and maybe hopefully we can pioneer something that's fresh. That's my desire.
Yeah. Well, one thing we have that well, I'm not saying all politicians don't, but we follow Jesus, and he is not impressed by systems, and he's not. It's not like he is calling you to this, but then is stuck within the paradigm that it is, and is saying, "Oh, I didn't really anticipate that." So, no, by all means, I think God can use you to change it from the inside out. I think that's just the challenge, right? Is it from the outside in, it just looks so fundamentally flawed, and even the whole cycle that you have to be sucked into of fundraising and even that kind of I struggle with sometimes, which is that it shouldn't have to be about that. And it bums me out, the system. And I feel convicted by my apathy, but has that been a challenge?
Oh, 100%, man. Do you know how much these races cost? I mean, you wonder why people don't want to do it. It's insane.
Yeah.
But you have these career politicians that get in and they're in there for 40 plus years, like, the guy that I'm running against, and they're entrenched. And, there's, you have to, it's interesting. It's like when we go into Iraq, or we go into, India, we're rescuing a lot of children over there right now from the child labor camps. And sometimes you have to work through broken systems and things that are not perfect. I think the political world is no different. You have to enter into a broken system and bring the kingdom in the midst of that. And so, I'm really trying to approach it with that mindset. and know that, like, the last thing that we're called to do as believers is go and hide in a corner and point at the world of how it's so dark. And I think we've been doing that for a long time. And because of it, we've abdicated entire spaces of society that literally have no gospel bearing, people, or very few, that are shining bright. And I just think that, just like we have done in the past, where we've gone into other places where a lot of people don't go. To be honest with you, a year ago, I thought we were going to move to the Middle East full time. I could feel the transition, and I was like, okay, God, let's sell everything and go. Looking at my life now, that would have been an easier decision. That would have been way, way less complicated. Yeah. But we're called into this realm, and so we're going to try to do it the best that we can, and go enter into the system and bring the kingdom. And I think that we feel like we have really great advisors and people in our corner and people praying for us. We do need a lot of money, but we're just trusting that that's going to come.
Yeah.
I guess
I think your comparison with Daniel's so cool. I think that's a really good way to look, and a good example in the Bible to look to, just the way he had to deal with being in that context and being light in such a dark place. I really appreciate that. And just one other comment on that, like just Ben mentioned William Wilberforce, and I think that is an interesting story as well, of when he was considering, oh, maybe I should become a preacher, and his mentor said, you're in politics, why not be a servant of God in that realm? So I really appreciate, I agree with what you're saying there. David, sorry, you're going to ask a question.
Well, I was just going to say, in the case with Daniel, he was more or less forced. I mean, he was taken by he was like forced into politics. He didn't decide to run. So it's a little bit different. I mean, I know, Sean, you've done a lot of great things in the Middle East and in India. You've had a great impact there. Do you think it was because you weren't involved in politics that you were able to have that great impact? Because for a time, I helped support a work in Delhi, and I know if we would have got into the political thing, we would have been kicked out of the country. But because we were involved in helping the poor, we were eventually able to have a big influence in Delhi because we didn't get into politics. And so I'm just wondering, it's not about not being involved, but how are you going to have the greatest impact? And so do you really, I mean, you've had such a great impact in so many places. Do you think this is the danger in this, is that it could actually make you less effective?
Well, I mean, the danger in this is people would listen to my music less, and the danger in this is people would paint me as a blah, blah, blah. And the danger in this is whatever. I can't really go down that road. I just have to be obedient with what the Lord's saying. Yeah. And, I think, on a global scale, this actually, I think, is going to be a massive benefit to us in other nations, that we have nonprofits and NGOs, especially in the Muslim world, where, politics is huge, and, they would love, I mean, I'm getting quite a few invitations from quite a few countries, just because of my foreign policy experience. And they love the whole notion of having a politician come into a refugee camp. I mean, that to them would be like amazing in that part of the world. They just love that. So I'm really believing that the Lord's going to use it. Now, on the crazy, wild, insane chance that I was actually able to win, carrying the title as a member of Congress, I don't know if there's a nation you couldn't get into. I don't know if there's a place that wouldn't roll out the red carpet to you, that wouldn't enormously help you in your NGO or nonprofit stuff. I think that it would be a massive benefit to what we're doing around the world, because a lot of these countries, the hang up is really on government agencies giving you visas, government agencies giving you clearance, government agencies giving you permits, and I think that me being in that position would enormously help our guys.
So how, with what are the things that you feel God is calling you to change? What, how are you able to stand on what I'd imagine are going to be pretty intense issues? I mean, the things I've heard, you believe in some things. You're not really going to play the political game. How are you going to do that in a way that promotes conversation, that brings people together, which clearly is a major sort of macro goal within politics? But what are the things that specifically you feel like, man, these are the things these are the hills I want to die on? You mentioned that earlier. What are those hills?
Well, the life issue is a huge one for me. I would run just on that alone. You know, I was with my 4 kids at the zoo yesterday, San Diego, and I'm in love with my kids, and we have a culture of death and genocide in America, and it's horrendous. And so, you know, California just passed a law mandating that every university, public university, mandates that people have the abortion pill in their universities, that taxpayer funded dollars to do that. So, I mean, it's just insane. Like we're living in such insanity. And, you know, at the same time, believing that the answer to that is, you know, rerouting those tax dollars to pregnancy centers and to adoption agencies. And, you know, I have some things in my heart that, you know, that I feel like, you know, it's more than just standing up and picketing. Like we have to become the solution and bring change to make it easier for people to not choose to have an abortion. So that's a hill that's definitely, you know, worth dying on for me. There's quite a number of those. It'd take me a while to go through all of them, but I think a big one, at least speaking in California, again, I am living in the most far left, crazy environment. And I think that sparks me even more to want to engage, because there is a California inside of California. Hope that makes sense. And, you know, the California inside of California thinks that it's crazy to pass out needles to the homeless to shoot up in San Francisco and yet ban plastic straws. I mean, you know, gas tax that's, you know, I just paid $400. I drove home last night from Sacramento, spent $4.30 on gas, a gallon. And, you know, I was in Oregon the other day and it was $2.30. So I think there's everyday issues. There's the major issues that are important to me. And then there's the issues where it's just like making life difficult for people and not really representing the people. I think if you look at the policies, again, reverting back to Congress, 13% approval rating, they're not passing anything. There's no bipartisan connection. It's just right now it's 100% impeachment. It's just non-stop. We're literally electing these guys and they're doing nothing, you know. We have to find ways to get stuff done, you know, where it comes all the issues, whether it's healthcare, whether it's, you know, military stuff, or whether it's, you know, stimulus packages, or whether it's, you know, there's so many issues to happen right now. And I just feel like that they're just not getting stuff done. So I have stances on all of those things that I feel like are important to me. And we'll be outlining those in the days to come.
Cool. Hey, so Sean, one of the things I think that's also challenging for followers of Jesus going into politics is your natural audience or voters would be followers of Jesus, people in the church. And yet there's that challenging thing of like using the church platform to promote a candidate or to get politicized. Have you thought that one through, like how you would deal with that? Like, well, I don't know where you stand on it. I'll tell you where I stand. Like I struggle with whenever we use the church platform for that to say, hey, vote for this candidate or vote for that candidate. And yet now I'm trying to think about that from your perspective as somebody who is wanting to do this, and you've, you know, prayed through and you feel called by God to do this. And obviously you need people to vote for you. How do you see that in the church world? Should the church be used for, you know, promoting candidates and that kind of thing? Or how do we deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, the American Revolution started in churches. So, I mean, if you research the foundation of America, you know, and resisting the British and the tyranny of the king, all that started in pulpits.
Yeah, sorry about that, Luke. By the way, we're still
yeah.
I mean, we're sorry, but not sorry.
Yeah. So, I don't. You know, I think people that kind of create this narrative where the church shouldn't have anything to do with. I mean, you know, Obama ran his whole campaign out of a church. His entire presidential campaign, both years, was run out of church. You know, there is a executive order against the Johnson Amendment right now, which the Johnson Amendment is kind of a gag order to, on preachers. For me, the issue isn't the legality of should we or shouldn't we prop up a candidate. To me, it's more about, I have a lot of friends that are pastors, and not everybody is a Republican. That's in the
Right.
church. Not everybody's a Democrat. And I think that we kind of get away from those sides, and we just need to talk about the issues. Do I think the church needs to engage?
Right.
Heck yes, they do. Do they need to talk about the issue? 100%. I mean, you're looking at, I think if you look at even evangelical voters in America, they're the largest voting bloc in America, about 60 million. And 20 million of those 60 million are registered to vote. That means 40 million are not even registered to vote. So they're frustrated, or they're whining, or they're whatever about different issues, and they're not even registered. So I want to make a push to just register people in the church to vote. Let's just start there. Like, just register. Like, be active in your duty in society to engage in the political realm. It's just shocking to me, how many people aren't registered. And then I think when you talk about the issues, I don't think you have to talk about candidates. I don't think you have to talk about parties. I think you talk about biblical issues and how it relates to politics. And I think it makes the conversation very clear. I don't, yes, I have influence in the church world. Yes, I'm a worship leader. Am I going to stop doing that because I'm running for Congress? No. I'm going to keep doing. Am I going to try to manipulate that position? No. I mean, I was at a huge event this last weekend in San Diego. Everybody knows that I'm the long-haired worship leader running for Congress. I don't have to say that. I don't have to, mention that. Everybody knows, and I'm just going to keep preaching the things that I've preached, singing the songs that I've sung, and hopefully I will be an influence to the church to engage. Doesn't have to be necessary for me. Obviously, very few places I go, people can actually vote for me. You realize that the district is running is very small. So it's I'm going to be in Alabama this weekend, and obviously that has no connection to my California district. But I definitely do want to inspire the church, and I want people to engage, and I want people to register. I want them to be engaged in the issues, and I don't see a problem with that. Some people may disagree, but I think it's part of our right as believers to engage in that process.
Yeah. I just got a text from a guy named Nigel. He said he's your #1 fan. Nigel?
Okay.
Sorry about this.
So he wants to know about, he has an initiative called the Releasing Lions into Urban Areas. And he wants to know if you're elected, if you would support that.
An amazing idea. I think urban areas that are heavily armed would be important. So I mean, he can release one near my house. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, but he's against guns, so he wants it just to be more like, it'd be more interesting if you're out in a park and all of a sudden, like
more
one
wild.
of your friends disappears because of a lion. He thinks that would make things more adventurous.
Give some purpose, inject some purpose into society.
What do you think? You think that's? But I guess that's really the core of his question.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to talk to my advisors about that.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That's a tradition on this podcast. I don't know why, and I can't control it. It's like a rash. So anyway, how can people find you? How can they support you? How can they pray for you?
So they can go on SeanForUs.com, SeanForScan.com, or they can go on Sean for Congress. I think I have some Instagram and Facebook posts, and we want to kind of bring people along the journey with this. So we'll be releasing content and our stances on things, and I'm about to write up my thoughts today on the whole NBA China thing. Ooh. So be looking for that.
All right, Luke, would you mind praying for Sean?
Definitely. Yeah, God, thank you so much for Sean, for his heart, for you, for his desire to bring change, for his desire to act on the things that you've put on his heart. Thank you for his willingness to sacrifice things that humanly speaking, success or a whole area of his life that was already well established, and give that up so that he can serve you in a new realm, in a new area. And I do pray, Father, you give him wisdom as he does this. You just give him clear guidance. He would, I imagine he's going to come up against a lot of very difficult decisions, difficult environments to be in. Lord, help him have the integrity and faith of Daniel, and that he would know exactly how to interact in the world of politics. And I pray you would use him to be a voice for truth and for what's right and what's on your heart as he engages in this. So bless him, guide him, and provide for him the huge amount of finances that is needed for this kind of thing. Just lead him, Lord Jesus, and bless him and his family in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. Yeah. Again, if you want to support Sean, again, SeanForUs.com. Yeah, this has been a very interesting conversation. You don't often get this intersection. And so I really enjoyed it, and I felt challenged by it. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. Today, I'm going to say this morning, but you know what, time zones, I'm not sure. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
All right. If you have questions for us, Provoke&Inspire, comeandlive.com. And Sean's gone. So we'll talk to you next time. Peace.